So I want to give a couple of examples of both cultural examples and political examples of Republicans very accurately pointing out something that's bad or wrong, but then not being able to define what's right or offer a good alternative to replace what's wrong. Two cultural examples, two political examples here. We're going to start with a cultural example. So red pillars on Twitter, I guess formerly known as Twitter X. If you're not familiar with the red pill movement, a lot of you guys are, I know, but we also have boomers that watch this show, so I want to make sure they fully understand this. Red-pilled folks are people who don't identify as Republican, they don't identify as conservative, but they also reject wokeness, they reject radical leftism, they reject Marxism, and they sometimes are able to diagnose a cultural problem that has practical negative repercussions for our lives. For example, over this past weekend, on Twitter, there was this effort by the red pill folks to push this idea that marriage as an institution is problematic. And their argument was marriage as an institution is problematic specifically for men because men can face divorces. I think 80% of divorces are initiated. Divorce papers are filed by women, and women oftentimes win custody of children in family court. And women, when they divorce, are oftentimes given lifelong alimony and can take half of the possessions of the man. And so the red-pilled right is arguing that marriage is a risky institution for men, that there's no incentive for men to get married because they will get screwed over by women in marriage if they are to get divorced. And red pillars say, you know, the divorce rate is so high, this is almost inevitable for young men. Now, when I hear this cynical view of marriage, I don't agree with it. But I do understand they are diagnosing a cultural problem that's a real problem. The divorce rate in our country, while it's lower than it has been since the 1980s, it's still astronomical compared to what it should be. And a lot of men do feel that they have been unfairly treated by family court or divorce court because of the reasons that I listed. I can sit here and fully acknowledge that our marriage and divorce laws, our civil laws, are not ideal, that there's probably reform that needs to be made to it. But here's where the red pill right is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. They can point to this cultural problem and they can say divorce is bad and women divorce their husbands a lot more than they should and men get screwed by that. But then when they go to offer a solution, well, what should men do? What should our society do? They offer a terrible alternative. In fact, in this case, I would argue that they're prescribing poison. I posted about it on X this weekend to jump into this conversation, and I want to read to you what I posted. I said, as usual, red pill identifies a problem accurately, that divorce is harmful and evil, but prescribes poison as an antidote. No, men should not reject marriage just because women initiate most divorces, women win custody, and women can take half of men's money. The solution is Catholicism. There's no such thing as divorce in Catholic doctrine. Marriage is not a contract, it's a covenant before God to become one, and you simply can't break that even if you want to. Even if you initiate a civil divorce, the church doesn't recognize that civil divorce because they don't recognize divorce. And I said, it's funny how once again, as always, secularism is a failure and the real solution to sin and evil is and always will be God. And I posted this knowing I would get a reaction from the red pill movement because they're not particularly religious. I think that's how they differ from conservatives, is they're usually basing their policies and the practical implications of policies versus the morality of the policy. And it was exemplified here.